my heart was beating out of my chest. I stood up. We had done maybe 36 stories out throughout the year on this. And so I announced, I could barely speak. I announced to the newsroom, I said, "Hey guys, James Byrd is coming home for Christmas." And it was like the movies, Jeff, like that slow clap where everybody, Maurice Tinsley, everybody stands up and does the slow clap. And we raced over to Fort Worth, and the next day we were in Austin, or Huntsville, I guess it would be, and welcomed him home from prison.
Jeff Crilley spent 25 years in TV news. During his career, he made hundreds of national news appearances, including CNN, CNN Headline News, Fox News, the Discovery Channel, Good Morning America, and CBS Early Show. He's been recognized by his peers with dozens of national and regional awards, including the Emmy, the National Headliners Award, the Edward R. Murrow Award, the Thurgood Marshall Award, and in 2004 was named by the Texas Associated Press as the best TV reporter in the state of Texas. Quite an accolade. Jeff is now the owner of Real News PR, a highly respected and successful public relations company that he started in 2008. Great time to start a company. We'll talk about that later. Well, welcome to the Bigger Than Business podcast, Jeff.
I am thrilled. And this is your inaugural show. And for me to be your first guest, I'm so proud.
Well, thank you for being here. Yeah, I feel a little bit like a rookie interviewing a perpetual all-star.
Well, you're too kind. You're too kind. Well, I love it that you moved to television. I mean, this is going to be a great journey for you.
Well, the reason I did audio before was because I was a little hesitant to be in front of the camera. So I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate your encouragement. Yeah, I want to start with a little background. How did you get started as a TV news reporter for Fox 4 TV in Dallas?
Sure. So I, as you said, 25 years in TV news, Lansing, Omaha, Minneapolis, and then finally Dallas. And Dallas came to me because I grew up in Detroit, kind of a rough kid, rough town for a kid. And every summer we'd go to Ennis, Texas to visit grandma. And it was just a little Mayberry RFD town. And so when I started having kids, you reevaluate your priorities. And my priorities at the time was, I'm going to get to New York. I'm going to be the next, Peter Jennings. And then you start having kids and you say, man, do I really want to live in New York? And so I settled on, gosh, I want to get to Texas. I want to raise my kids in Ennis, and I want to work at one of the TV stations in Dallas. And so I relentlessly pursued them. I mean, I stalked them. I mean, there were stalker laws, but I harassed these people. I would fly down without even an appointment and just barge my way in to get an interview. And it paid off. And then I did 15 years on the streets of Dallas and loved that journey. And now I'm off to a new adventure.
Yeah, well, we only got to see you in front of the camera. What was life like, not only in front of the camera, but away from the camera as a TV news reporter?
Sure. People don't see the stress that leads up to a live shot, right? So sometimes, imagine a reporter, you're on your way to City Hall to do a story on the city council, and then they say, hey, Jeff, there's a high-speed chase, turn around, you're going to Plano. We don't know where you're going to go, and you're going to be live as soon as we get the mast up. And so there's that pressure of you got to look calm, cool, and collected on TV. But the, showing up on TV with like one fact.
You don't get to do your research like I did.
No, sometimes you have one fact and you're live. And so it taught me to rock and roll is and as an entrepreneur, think about that. Life is just a series of pivots.
That's exactly right. That's a great analogy, especially for entrepreneurs.
Thank you.
I can't imagine how you did that. The pressure involved in that. You deal with it well. That's a gift, obviously.
Thank you. Well, it taught me to be good at ad-libbing and flying by the seat of my pants. What it did not teach me was a 3-month plan, right? What is a 3-month plan in TV news? It's like, I'd like a 3-minute plan. So sometimes clients come to us and they want to have a 30, 60, 90-day plan. And I'm like, what are you talking about? The plan is I'm going to get you on the news. I'm going to give you a television podcast. So I'm not good on the long-term strategy piece just because I was kind of a MASH unit Like,
Yeah.
think about that, MASH, that's like, yep, versus a concierge medicine physician who schedules everything.
Right.
And I found that the real world is very slow. It really is, Jeff. They have meetings to have meetings and write white papers and schedule other meetings. And
I can relate to that.
and TV news is very, very fast. And so our motto at Real News is publicity at the speed of news.
That's
right.
Yeah. Yeah. And just getting to know you, I've learned that you are on top of things and you do stay on top of things.
Thank you.
You move pretty quickly
Thank you.
as you move forward. So I see that. How many stories do you think you reported over the years?
Well, let's think about that. So, Monday through Friday, I'm doing sometimes 3 stories a day. You're doing something for the 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 10 o'clock news over the course of 25 years. Wow. I've never been good at math. That's why I got into television.
So I would say there's probably thousands of stories. How's that?
Easily thousands.
Out of all those stories, is there a story that touched you more than the others or meant more to you that you would mind sharing?
Sure. I freed an innocent man from prison, and that was kind of the height of my in my journalism career. I ended up winning a Thurgood Marshall Award from that. I won an Emmy Award and a bunch of other awards, and it's a longer story than we have time for, but essentially, you have a good brother and a bad brother, and the good brother was in prison for something that the bad brother did. Wow. And we got the bad brother to confess. We got lie detector tests. This went all the way up to the governor's desk. And on basically Christmas Eve, we get a call from the governor's office saying, Jeff, you've got a 1-hour head start on the rest of the media because we're going to announce that James Byrd is going to be freed and come home for Christmas. And I just, my heart was beating out of my chest. I stood up. We had done maybe 3 dozen stories out throughout the year on this. And so I announced, I could barely speak. I announced to the newsroom, I said, hey guys, James Byrd is coming home for Christmas. And it was like the movies, Jeff, like that slow clap where everybody, Clarice Tinsley, everybody stands up and does the slow clap. And we raced over to Fort Worth, and the next day we were in Austin or Huntsville, I guess it would be, and welcomed him home from prison.
How cool is that? I remember that.
Do you really?
Yes, I do. I remember that story. I did not recall, sorry, that you were the reporter.
That's okay.
Freedom, but man, that's just huge. Oh. That's huge. I'm glad I asked that.
Yeah. What a blessing.
So that leads right into my next question is, so you're in the limelight. You're an Emmy Award-winning TV reporter, great career path. Why do you leave that to begin the risky and difficult challenge of building a company?
Sure. Well, I wasn't immediately a risk taker. I wrote a book in 2002. I left in 2008, and the book was about publicity. Here's how you get on the news from a news guy's perspective. This is what you should say to me. This is what you should never say to me. Here's how you talk in sound bites. Here's how you become an expert in your field. I ended up giving 300 speeches a year for 6 straight years in addition to my TV job. Wow. Breakfast speech, lunch speech, go to work at Channel 4. Breakfast speech, lunch speech, go to work at Channel 4. I sell 70,000 copies of a $10 book from the back of the room. And as I'm signing books, people are complaining about their PR firm. They're saying, Jeff, I could buy your $10 book. I'm happy to donate to your cause. 1, I'm probably not going to read the book. 2, I've got this PR firm that's doing a lousy job. Can I just hire you? And I'd say, no, I'm on TV. I can't take your money. And they'd say, all right, well, take my card and don't throw this away because, Jeff, this is worth thousands of dollars a month to you. Because when I get a chance to hire the guy who literally wrote the book on free publicity, you are hired. And they would hand me these cards and I would squirrel them away. And at the ripe old age of 45, that's when I quit TV news. I had had enough. I think we're all climbing the top of this little hill or mountain, and I was climbing the top of local TV news reporter. They were not going to make me Clarice Tinsley. I was never going to be the main anchor at Channel 4. And I just said, okay, I'm 45. I think I have a second act. I think I'm better than all of these PR people who are pitching me stories. And so it was the riskiest thing I ever did, Jeff. I mean, I liken it to the difference between a a tiger in the woods versus a tiger in the zoo. A tiger in the zoo predictably gets a steak every day at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m.
Right.
A tiger in the wild has to hunt.
Yeah.
So I remember I wrote this letter of resignation, and my finger hovered above the send button for a full minute.
Wow.
Because I realized, man, if I press send,
I'm out in the wild.
I'm not taking this back.
Yeah.
And I
No steak dinner tonight.
So I'm at Channel 4. I'm writing this up. It was right before the 9 o'clock news, and my fingers hovering, and then I pressed send, and I felt exhilaration and panic all at the same time.
I've been there. I get it. Any business owner has for the most part.
Thank you.
Because they had some sort of career ahead of that, but before that. So
riskiest thing I'd ever done. But now I've been asked now, what are your greatest regrets? What would you do over again? I think I probably would have left TV news 10 years earlier. 25 years was great. If I had left at the 15-year mark, I would have been able to enjoy, the fruits of my labor even more.
It's easier to say that when you've had the success. Man, I wish I'd started that success earlier.
Right? Well, you work for yourself. You don't have to answer to anybody, and I think that's awesome.
It is. It is awesome. So what was Real News PR like in the early years? I mean, you had these people that gave you your cards. You thought you had an immediate client base. Were they, when you called them, did they become clients? And how did you build Real News PR and the highly respected and successful company it is today?
Sure. I had about 30 cards squirreled away, and I called all 30 and I signed up 10. Wow. 10 the first year.
Pretty good odds.
And I'll just to give your viewers encouragement, I'm a big transparency guy. I signed up 10 clients at $3,000 a month. So you can do the math. It was $360 a year from my home, no overhead. Second year, 20 clients paying me $3,000 a month. That's $750,000 with no overhead. I had to hire my first employee, who is actually sitting right over here. One of my greatest joys is to say that employee number 1 is still with us.
It is.
It speaks volumes about the culture we created, and so
he's actually excellent. We've done.
Yeah, thank you.
Work with have been fantastic.
All right, Chris, shout out.
Every business owner. I mean, that's an incredible start. Most business owners don't have that kind of start where they immediately get 10 clients, paying them that much a month. I know when I started, I had 0 clients and 0 leads. I wish I'd had what you have, but there are always challenges. Every business owner that we work with has at some point had to worry about making payroll, has been nearly out of business. Only 13% of startups survive.
Yes.
So to have this, to survive and get to the point of thriving like you are today is incredible. But I know you went through some significant challenges along the way just because you're a business owner.
Sure.
Do you mind sharing one or two of the biggest hurdles or challenges to date?
Sure. I remember in some of those early days, I was, you're trying to do everything. You've got hats that you're taking on and off all the time, and it's the salesman, and then it's executing on the promise, and then changing the ink in the printer, and I'm trying to do it all. And so that was a lot to focus on. And so I was constantly being whipsawed between the different roles. And so a challenge, I think, to all small business owners is keep the sales hat on. I mean, that would be my advice to your viewer, is keep that sales hat on. Even Elon Musk, one of the richest men on the planet, he has his sales hat on most days. Yep. He's the evangelist for the brand, and he's not, changing the ink in the printer anymore.
Right.
So all small business owners really need to concentrate on business development, and then they start to hire a team that will execute on their promises. In fact, 2 members of your team are here, and I know you're tremendously proud of them. And so one of the reasons why you're so successful is you have a great team around you.
I know that that's great advice. As a matter of fact, you still have your sales hat on. You sold me.
There you go.
Well done.
Thank you.
But we call it a unique ability team, where when my first hire, I hired to do the things that were not my unique ability, things I were the worst at, incompetent at, and it was their unique ability. And they did it 1,000 times better than I ever could. And we built the whole team that way. And it's just been incredible because everybody's working in something they love to do and they're really good at. And it frees me up to focus on what I do best. And that sounds exactly like what you've done and meeting your team. And the other thing is we didn't talk about this ahead of time, but culture. we believe culture is everything. And meeting your team members, I can tell you've got a really strong culture in your
Thank you.
organization. Tell me a little bit about how you built that or why it's important.
Well, I can't say that I've always had a great culture. There was a time 10 years ago, Chris will remember this, when the company was very sick. It was a very sick company. We had about 7 people, and there was one employee that just didn't fit. Yeah, I'm a pleaser. I like to hire like people who will, bust through a wall for you. And this one person was not really fitting the mold. And I remember walking into work one day with 7 employees, and I had a pit in my stomach, and I said to myself, I don't want to come to work. And just like hearing myself say that, like woke me up. When the CEO and sole owner of the company doesn't want to come to work at his or her own company, this is a messed up company. And I realized that the problem was really this one employee. And at the time I had a vice president, and I told her, I said, look, I'm going to Spain with my wife for 7 days, and he needs to be gone by the time I get back. So I thought at some point late in the trip, I'd get a text message. I'm on the tarmac, and they're about to tell us to shut the phones down. And I got a 1-word text. It said, done.
Wow.
And it was like this relief and I came back to a completely different company. And so one of the promises that I've made is just hire great people with great attitudes. You can always teach skill. You can't teach attitude. And so one of the things, and thank you for the compliment, we call ourselves a Thank God It's Monday company. There's a work family. They love each other. We cater lunch daily. I sit in my conference room. They sit in their conference room. I deliberately don't go to have lunch with the employees because I remember what it was like when I was at Channel 4. As soon as the boss comes in, all conversations stop. So I hear laughter coming down the hallway. I mean, they're in their conference room with the door closed. I'm in my conference room with the door closed, and I hear laughter coming down the hallway. And it's the sweetest sound I hear all week.
That's great. Thank you. That is awesome. And yeah, one thing I've learned through great business owners like you over the years is, and we've built into our companies, you just can't compromise the things that you value the most.
Yes.
And one person in the team that compromises those things can ruin everything. So
yes,
thanks for sharing that. I'm really glad I asked. So I know from others who use your services that you're one of the best public relation companies in the country, in the business. What differentiates Real News PR?
I've never taken off my newsman hat, right? My journalism hat. Great PR firms think like journalists. If you really watch the news and consume the news, you kind of know what the customer likes and buys. But if you don't really watch the news, you're going to try to sell them something they don't need or want. And so in every industry, there's a buyer and a seller. And in most industries that are performing well, the seller knows how the buyer thinks. So in public relations, the public relations firm is the seller, the journalist is the buyer. But so many times during that speaking career where I'm out teaching people how to, court the media in the morning, in the afternoon, I'm taking a phone call from a very large PR firm in Dallas. And I remember one conversation, a young lady calls me from a very large PR firm that I won't name. And she begins the conversation like this, Jeff. She says, hey, Jeff, it's Brandy from, company XYZ. So are you the on-camera guy, or are you behind the scenes?
That's not a great way to start.
And I remember I tried to do this with great kindness. I said, Brandy, are you in front of a computer right now? She says, yes, I am. I said, okay, do me a favor. Just put into Google Jeff Crilley. And I'm hearing her type, and she'd be like, oh, you're the on-camera guy. I said, yeah, I'm the on-camera guy. And just a little advice, Brandy, you should just, do a little bit of homework. It only takes 2 minutes to figure out who you're about to call and what you're going to talk to them about. And so anyway, I'm sharing you that story because in my industry, there is a disconnect between the buyer and the seller. And so I call myself an all journalist PR firm. From day one, I was a sole employee and I was a journalist. So in our DNA is journalism, and as long as we think like journalists, ask questions like journalists, we're going to be very successful.
That's incredible. Yeah, that's so perfect. Thanks for sharing that. So, both your daughter Sarah and your son Dallas work in the company.
Yes,
which is incredible. So, what type of challenges has that created for them? Two siblings working together, maybe for you, balancing that, and for other non-family team members. Any challenges to date you've had to work through?
No, I mean, I'm so blessed that my kids want to work with me. I run into entrepreneurs all the time, and I'll ask them, hey, do you think your kids will ever work for you? And they'll, no, they don't want to have anything to do with me. And so the fact that both of my kids want to work with Dad and make this company special speaks volumes. In fact, I'll share a story. So my grandson, I know I don't look old enough, but I have 3 grandchildren.
Wow. No, you don't look old
Thank
enough.
Thank you. So my grandson, Caleb, is now 13 years old. And about a year ago, before we hired our director of first impressions, that's what we call our receptionist, Caleb would sit at the front desk. And I didn't witness him do this, but I was told that he would walk around from behind the front desk, look you straight in the eye, give you a firm handshake, and say, "My name is Caleb Hill, future owner of this company." And when I heard he was doing that, I was like, wow, why would I miss this part of the movie? I think I had been, we all tell ourselves a story. So the story I was telling myself is, sometime in your mid 60s, maybe late 60s, you kind of wind things down. And now I'm like, wait a minute, my grandson wants to work in the company. How cool would that be to have 3 generations?
Well, so. It's cool to have 3 generations that want to work in the company, but it's also incredible to have capable
Thank you.
kids that want to work in the company. And I know for a fact that both Sarah and Dallas are very capable. I've interacted with Dallas a fair amount.
Yes.
I haven't met Sarah, but I know she led you actually into the podcast business. And
she did.
The reason why we're sitting together today.
That's right. She inspired it. And I always say I'm the original and they're the copy, but the copy's brighter than the original.
What are their roles?
So my daughter is my vice president,
Okay.
And my son is head of business development. And, I'll brag about both of them. My daughter is kind of all heart and soul. She's very much like her daddy. She's, if there was a gunman that ran in here right now, she would throw herself in front of the gunman and say, "Shoot me, don't shoot my daddy." Wow. She's all heart and soul. And my son is very analytical. He's a great communicator, and he looks like me, but he's very analytical, and he's able to come in and see, is this person's website working? He's great at digital media. He's great at fixing stuff. So he's kind of a jack of all trades at Real News. And even during the lunch hour, when all the other team members are eating in the conference room, he's just alone in his office, like hammering away. And he's the first person in to Real News every morning. He opens up for us. And so tremendously proud of my son for that work ethic.
Well, it's nice for you and for the company that they have different gifts to bring to the company.
Yes.
And also gifts that complement each other, right?
Yes.
Do they recognize each other's gifts and appreciate each other's gifts and what they bring to the company?
They do. I don't think I've ever asked my son this question. What is it like your older sister is your boss? What is that like? Well, I guess in a way, she's been bossing him his whole life. So what's new?
Might be interesting to ask that question.
I probably should. But I think there's a great respect between the two of them, and the company's never performed as well as it's performing.
That's clear. That's awesome. So
thank you.
And are you able as a family to get away from the business and just be a family and not talk business when you have a son and a daughter and a future grandson that wants to be in the business?
Yes. We pride ourselves on that. When we, this weekend, for Father's Day, we'll be over at the pool and we're probably not we'll talk a little shop, but mostly my son is about to get married, and my daughter with, 3 active children, she's got a lot to contribute. And so I'm imagining we'll talk 2 minutes about business and the rest about family.
Good. We'll have a happy Father's Day doing that. Congratulations on Dallas getting married too. That's awesome.
So thrilled.
What will happen to Real News PR someday when Jeff Crilley no longer is involved? And that's probably way down the road based on your comments, but what do you think will happen?
I think I've left the company in really good hands. The team is really performing so efficiently that most of the decisions that happen inside Real News PR are not made by me. In fact, my wife and I will be going to France to celebrate her birthday, and the team prides themselves on not calling Jeff when he's on vacation. So I can leave for France for 7 days and not get a single phone call from the company. And so I do feel like every entrepreneur wants the business to live on, beyond their life. And I have built a machine right now that can work with or without me. And what a blessing.
Well, it's actually worth more if it can run without you.
Thank you.
And you're actually doing them a favor when they don't reach out to you while you're away, because they get to make decisions.
Yes.
They get to have the authority to do things and run the business, and that's how they learn. Right?
Yeah. I always tell them, I said, I'm never going to be the guy who micromanages you and say, why did you do this? And why did you do that? So, in the last few years since the company started running itself, employees have been hired and I didn't have anything to do with it. Employees have been fired and I didn't have anything to do with it. And they just kind of report to me and say, here's what we did and here's why we did it. And I said, hey, I respect that. Good call.
This is all very impressive for somebody who started out as a Emmy Award-winning reporter. Running a business is a totally different deal. And
thank you.
The things you're doing are very impressive. And I know for a fact that they work. So
thank you.
Well done. Congratulations on that. What advice do you have for listeners who are business owners that are considering hiring a public relations firm, or an individual that's listening that's considering hiring a public relations firm? What advice do you have for them?
Sure. Unfortunately, my industry is underperforming, and I know that because we're getting refugees from larger PR firms. The art of getting people on the news, if that's why you're hiring a PR firm, it's kind of a lost art. When I was in the news 15 years ago, there were still kind of those baby boomer PR people who would call you up and do their homework and really study you and get to know you and wouldn't waste your time. And these days, it's really filled with a bunch of 22, 23-year-olds that don't watch the news. And I say this not facetiously, but you could go to a typical PR firm and say to one of the young associates, name an anchor, local or national, just name a TV anchor. And they would look at you confused, like, why, how would I know that? Why didn't you ask my dad? So the very young associates in the news business really don't watch the news. And it goes back to that conversation I had about, studying the customer. What do they buy? How do they think? So my advice is, do your homework on PR firms, and most PR firms will make you promises. They'll say, hey, we have all these connections and we're going to do these things for you. And then months go by and then nothing ever happens. And so what we're doing, and I don't mean to make this a plug, but I'm going to just take it anyway, is we're guaranteeing between 15 and 30 media placements per month per client. Wow. Which is an insane promise. No PR firm would ever make that promise. I do it because, as you probably remember, I wake up at 5 every morning. I put out a daily tip sheet. It goes out to 29,000 journalists with an open rate of 18%. That's insanely high for a daily email. And I've not missed a single day in 15 years. Not Christmas Day, not New Year's Day for 15 years. Wow. So journalists respect me. They say, well, the last 50 people we booked from Crilley's tip sheet were good, so why wouldn't this person be good? So, and people say, Jeff, can't you get somebody to write that for you? I've actually taught my son how to write my daily email. If I got hit by a bus, he could jump in and write this email. But it's my crossword puzzle.
Yeah.
Some people get up and meditate. Some people go to the gym. For 2 hours every morning, I'm alone with my thoughts and I'm putting this together. And it's almost like if you said to your dad, hey, Dad, we can get somebody to do that New York Times crossword puzzle for you. We can hire somebody to do that. He would look at you and say, what are you talking about? That's my joy. It's a very complicated crossword puzzle that I put together every morning, and it keeps my brain sharp.
Yeah, that's incredible. So you're not only keeping up with the media on TV, the anchors and so forth, but there's so much media now that's not on TV. You have to keep up with that as well, right? Because you have reporters in that, probably more in that area these days. How do you keep up with all that?
When I'm up in the morning, I'm listening to news radio on my phone, and I'm listening to local news on the television set. So what I'm doing really is listening to aggregators. If you think about a typical TV news or radio morning show, they've been up since one, scouring the world's headlines. And so when I hear something on Channel 5, and I also hear it on KLIF radio, I was like, okay, the aggregators have decided these are the top stories. And so in answer to your question, there are trends that happen in the news, feeding frenzies, and the media gets obsessed with stuff, and then they kind of devour it, and then they move on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so being aware of the feeding frenzies and when the feeding frenzy starts, and being able to kind of jump in while it's still newsworthy. So like if one of your viewers wanted to get on the news, let's suppose they're in financial advice, and the stock market has a huge up day or a huge down day. Those are times when the media is going to be looking for somebody in, personal finance to go on the news and talk about what the stock market is doing and why it's doing it. And so my advice to anybody watching this show that wants to get on the news, pay attention to the news. And when your feeding frenzy arrives, have the courage to pick up the phone and call the media and say, hey, I'm your expert. And if you know you won't,
or have a PR firm.
Or have a PR firm. If you know you won't do it, hire a PR firm to do it.
Yeah, that's great. Great advice. Thank you. I could go on, with your background in history. I mean, there's so many more questions I could ask, but I've taken enough of your time, and I appreciate it. But I do have one more question I ask everybody I interview.
You bet.
And Jeff, what is bigger than business for Jeff Crilley?
Family. Yeah. Yeah, my family, my wife is my love of my life. Can I tell a hopeless romantic story?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's why I asked.
So my wife is my soulmate, and on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon, our dream is to take a 1-hour nap. So we go to sleep above the covers, and we hold hands. I'm on the right, she's on the left, and we go to sleep for about an hour, hour and a half, and we wake up and we're still holding hands. And I don't know if that hits you the way it does me. The safety, the security, that this is like an extension of my own body. And so she's my soulmate. She's the light of my life.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate it. Thank you again for being on the show. And once again, happy Father's Day.
Thank you
for you and your family.
Jeff, you did such a great job.